I'd like to clarify that the labels Q, Q1, A, etc. are used to differentiate the voices heard on the 911 call and do not indicate the number of people at the crime scene. The labels with A represent the individuals speaking to the dispatcher, while those with Q denote the dispatcher and first responders. The 911 dispatcher communicates with the 911 caller and simultaneously with the EMTs and police. Therefore, anything labeled Q is not a friend present at the scene. Firstly, we've repeatedly heard that the 911 caller was not one of the unharmed roommates and that a friend used their phone to make the call. However, the transcript suggests otherwise. The call begins with the operator asking for the location of the emergency. The caller, labeled as A, says, "Hi. Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what. We have." Initially, the caller says something is happening, present tense, and then changes it to something happened, past tense. Notice that the caller refers to our house, not our friend's house. Given that the other residents of the house were no longer alive, it's reasonable to assume that the speaker was either Dylan or Bethany. If the 911 caller was not a resident of 1122 King Road, they would have said, "Something happened in our friend's house," or "the house next door." Why would law enforcement deliberately mislead the public about who made the 911 call, especially when it was stated multiple times that it was made by a friend using one of the roommates' phones? Moving to line 36, this is caller A1 who did not make the call. This is Hunter J's girlfriend, Emily. Her last name begins with an A, and if you know, you know. Her name is redacted and referred to by the initials EA in the new documents. They both live next door. Returning to line 36, the dispatcher asks caller A to repeat the address. Caller A1 gets on the phone and says, "I'll talk to you guys. We live at the right, so we're next to them." It seems like she's telling the dispatcher their current location, which is to the right of the 1122 house. This suggests that the phone call might not have been made from inside the crime scene, contradicting what we've been told. Instead, it appears the call was made from the house to the right. This is just speculation on my part. At line 60, caller A1 is on the phone with the dispatcher. When asked to explain the situation, A1 states, one of the roommates who's passed out and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up." Caller A interrupts with, "No. We saw," possibly correcting her explanation, indicating discrepancies in their stories. Caller A seems more focused on informing the 911 operator about a man seen inside the house rather than securing medical attention for the unresponsive friend. She was not concerned about the intruder when she initially saw him. Why is she worried about him 8 hours later when he's long gone? Caller A1 then adds, "Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night." Yeah. Caller A gets back on the phone and the 911 operator asks, "Are you with the patient? I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around." Ever determined to tell her story, caller A responds, "Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?" It seems as if she has rehearsed this and needs to play her part before forgetting her lines. Once again, the 911 operator insists on knowing what is currently happening, not what happened 8 hours prior. However, caller A is not swayed. She stays in character and replies, "I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m. Why would she say, "I don't really know"? How could she not know? We have been told the 911 call was in response to finding one of the roommates unconscious, but it does not seem like this was the initial intention of the call. Based on this transcript, it seems like the initial 911 caller was in fact Dylan, and not one of the friends who was called to the scene. Why would law enforcement lie about this detail? Why is she suddenly insistent on calling 911 about the man she saw, but she didn't seem worried about him when she initially saw him 8 hours prior? Once again, the 911 operator asks caller A, "What's going on right now? If someone is passed out, can you find that out?" Caller A responds with, "Yeah, I'll come. Come on. We gotta go check." "But we have to." "Is she passed out?" "She's passed out." "What's wrong?" This response almost insinuates that she was not near the crime scene at that moment. I speculate that Dylan and Bethany did not fall asleep on the first floor, but instead went next door to get help from Hunter J and Emily A. After contacting the risk management department for their sorority, they awaited their instructions. The 8-hour delay was to get the story straight, in my opinion. I am just speculating, this is my theory and not a fact. Regardless of an individual's response to a stressful situation, certain details in this transcript should not be overlooked. Experiencing trauma does not excuse all suspicious behavior.